When you unthread the machine, what you're going to do is just take the thread, take your cap off the pin, grab the thread, and then gently just pull that thread until the tail of your thread comes through, and that is how you unthread the top part. And then the bobbin, you just kind of flip that out and pull those threads out, and you've unthreaded your machine. Take your threads and wrap all of your threads back around your bobbin and wrap the threads back onto your spool of thread so that they don't get all tangled up. Now we're going to sew on the 5/8 seam allowance. The 5/8 seam allowance on all the machines are marked with a red line going all the way down. There are measurements on the throat plate, and the line has 5/8 inches written on it, and that is what is marked. Now, if you are making anything, normally it'll tell you to do or use a 5/8 seam allowance. Sometimes they may also call for 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch, or whatever the case may be, but there's markings on there for a reason, and that's what you need to use. I tried to mark it so it would make sewing a little bit easier for you. You're going to take the 2 pieces of fabric that I give you, and you're going to line it up with that red line. Now right now the presser foot is up, but the presser bar lifter is located on the back of the machine, and then you need to just set that down. You can see my finger pointing to it. You lift and lower the presser foot lifter. Lift and lower so that the presser foot is down when you're sewing. If the presser foot is not down when you're sewing, then you're going to jam your machine. So you don't want that to happen. So now we're going to go, we've got our thread. The thread should be behind the sewing machine, and you're going to set the presser foot down. Now you're going to sew 3 steps forward and then stop. The next step is to knot your thread, and what you're going to do is hold down on the reverse button. So you're going to hold down on the reverse button. Also, your machine should be set at 3, which it is right there, and your stitch length should be, actually your stitch length is on 3, and your pattern selector dial should be set at the straight stitch. We are not using any of the other decorative stitches. Right now we don't have a use for them. So now we're going to hold down on that reverse button, and that reverse is going to lock our stitch so that it doesn't come out after we're done sewing. So we're going to go backwards. She doesn't want to sew backwards. 3 stitches, and then you're going to go forward. For some reason it's not working. So we're going to go forward until the edge of our fabric reaches this line. And when it reaches this line, you are going to pivot. And pivoting is turning a corner. So I'm getting close to the pivot line. So I'm going to turn the hand wheel until I get to that pivot line. When you pivot, the needle needs to be down. You're going to lift the presser foot lifter. Do you see how the needle is still connected? And you're going to turn. We're just doing a practice today. And then you're going to go to the next corner. Now I'm not quite at the pivot line, so I'm going to just turn the hand wheel manually without stepping down on the foot control till my fabric reaches my pivot line, and then I want the needle to be down, lift, turn, and do the same thing again. And then when I get all the way around, I'm going to try to pivot again, or reverse, I mean. Let's see if it'll work. For some reason my machine should be stitching backwards and it is not. So I want to make sure that my needle is up, and then I'm going to take my threads and pull them out. Now there are 2 thread cutters on the machine that you can use. One is right here, and you would take the thread and you slide it right along the thread cutter, and that will cut your thread. Or there's another one behind the machine, which is located right there, and you can slide the thread. A lot of the older machines have the thread cutters right on the back of the pole that's holding the presser foot. So to use that one, you can take the threads after you're done sewing in both hands, and then just run it down on that thread cutter. See, I've hooked it in there, and then you just pull and it cuts your thread. You can use one or the other. Once you're used to using the one here on the left, that will cut it automatically. When you do start to sew though, you need to take this and pull a bit longer tail, because otherwise sometimes it will unthread your needle when you're sewing. Then what I would like you to do is you're going to, on one side of your fabric sample, you're going to line it up with the edge of your fabric. So we're going to take the presser foot and line it right with the edge of your fabric. And that's going to give us 1/4 of an inch. Now the 1/4 is going to be used when we're sewing our locker organizer pockets. So I want you to practice just doing one side of your fabric. So we're going to take that, and let's see if this will reverse. Sometimes it needs to be, it needs to get repaired. No, it doesn't want to work. But the stitch should go backwards, and then you're going to lift, pull your threads out, and again you can use your thread cutter, whichever one you like to use. Once you've done that, you're going to take a seam ripper. So now you've got your pivot. See how your corners are nice and square? If my needle was not down, those corners would not be square like that. So you want to make sure that when you pivot, the needle needs to be down. Then I'm going to be showing you how to use the seam ripper. When you seam rip, you take the stitch, take the seam ripper, and you slide it underneath the stitch until the stitch hits the little curve, and that will cut it. And you're going to do that about every 1/2 inch or so, because you're going to reuse your fabric again. This is just practice fabric. By the way, you can see that my top thread is blue and my bobbin thread is red. So you can see that. And it should have reversed here and here, but right now my machine needs to be repaired because it's not working. If your machine isn't working, or if yours isn't reversing, please let me know so I can tell you what to do after that. So after you do your seam ripping, about every ½ inch or so, you can take and just very carefully open that stitch up. You can also get inside here and cut your thread. Just don't cut your fabric. And all you're doing is just cutting your stitches. And then you're going to just take your threads out of it, just pick out your threads, and then just practice it again. Because the more practice you get following the red line, the better you'll be at when we make the locker organizer. So, because we will be using the red line and the edge of your presser foot, which is the 1/4 inch seam allowance.